Good morning, citizens of our underwater city of Phoenix. It's now 6 a.m. I promise the sun is shining. Did you know the side of the moon that faces Earth is known as the near side? The opposite, or back side, is the far side. Sometimes the far side is called the moon's dark side, but this isn't accurate. When the moon is between the Earth and the sun, the back side of the moon is bathed in daylight during one of the moon phases called the new moon. Visit our community news page to book your next trip to Kilimanjaro to view the moon and stars in all their splendor. Breakfast is served until 8 a.m. Have an on-top-of-the-world day.
Ishtar, the last Anunnaki. 93 AT. Space car, 5,000 miles south of the lunar dome. Grimaldi crater, Earth's moon. Ish drank the sweet cold fluid and rested his head on his arms. He instinctively shielded himself from judgmental glances, like when he was a child and his siblings questioned him. This was his new family, and he knew this was where he was supposed to be, as certainly as he knew his name was Ishtar. But his unspoken secrets caused his insides to burn like a furnace. He was ready to speak. He was desperate to share his burden, to verbalize his fucking feelings. Communicate with others like himself, not because of loneliness, but a desire to share thoughts, to connect, and to be part of something that mattered beyond listening to human prayers. The flying ball carrying his new friends appeared when he'd given up hope. Ish swallowed burning bile and straightened his spine. Had they arrived a day later, he would have never found them. He had given up and was exhausted, wishing to cease to exist. He had lost all hope. Now, after only an hour in their presence, he bloomed like a little desert flower that had wilted away in a drought of human want and need, but was saved by a rush of unexpected rain. He couldn't remember when he'd last felt hopeful. They weren't like humans, not the humans of Earth or those who'd arrived on the moon. Selfishness didn't drive these friends. It seemed his time of watching and waiting had ended. They were unlike the human masses or their leaders, and weren't children of Egypt either. How was that possible? Where had they come from, or better yet, when had they come? Their Anubis, the royal spirit companions at their sides, were a sign they were the missing strand in the web of time. The fates knew Xerxes kept his promise and guarded the apple and his offspring. That meant that one timeline he never could find was birthed and left undisturbed, as Ki had watched it, and then made him a promise that their offspring would be the future kings of Anzula. Before their departure, Ki and An had buried the golden apple inside the foundation of the holy wall of Ishtar, a fortification built to encircle the living tree in the center of the ancient kingdom of Urartu, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Ish remembered the beautiful gardens that sprouted from within after she sang to it. His sister had handed them the gift of everlasting life over the objection of their father, thus fueling the feud and despair. Their hopes of returning to Anzula and saving their world were crushed by the selfishness of their father. Finally, everything made sense. He shot a prayer to the fates, hoping they would hear him. After waiting for decades for the bubble car to appear, today, of all days, the day he wanted to give up and die, they'd shown up. If he'd committed suicide? No, he didn't even want to think about it. The fates would never have forgiven him. He exhaled and sighed. Then he closed his eyes and emptied his mind to make sure his prayer was heard. Thank you. He opened his eyes. The Anubis watched him with interest while peeking into the kitchenette. They must recognize me. Ish wanted to fall on his knees and play with the Anubis, like he had when he was a young boy in his father's palace. Unfortunately, this was not the time. He was tired, and the humans and their Zelk problem were reason enough to push aside the infantile urge. Moreover, he wasn't worthy, and the animal's rejection would only add to the hurt he was already experiencing.